내리실 곳은 홍제역입니다. This stop is Grand Hilton Seoul.
Christopher is 10, Allison's 6. Their strongest connection to Korean culture before we actually went there has been through food. Hamini makes the best Korean food that we've all ever tasted. Being around family, church, but food is like primary. But I think going to Korea kind of opened up like a connection.
I think it was a real eye-opening experience for the kids in some ways, because
It was for me.
and also for her, and for me, and how much and how fast things changed. And I think they kind of got a sense of where 할머니 and 할아버지 came from and how sort of they got there.
I think Allison's a little bit too young, but for Christopher, his deepest memories are historical. I really enjoyed seeing those connections, and that my kids, even though they didn't really understand all of the connections, when they went through the pictures, when they were doing their scrapbooks and they saw these pictures, they were like, yeah, this is my family. And it was very different than if it was just the four of us traveling around together. The fact that we had so many generations traveling together made it that much more powerful of an experience.
It was awesome.
It was fun.
It was
Was it hard,
tiring.
though?
Yeah, it was hard.
It was
You
definitely
walked for a
hard.
long time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sweaty.
Was it
But
worth
then, but yes, it was. When we get to the top,
Yeah.
we see the whole
Thingy.
yeah.
it? Beautiful
thingy.
panorama.
Yeah.
Panorama.
My trip to Korea.
So we also went to the Seoul Museum of History. I had a camera with me, so I took up closes of this big model of the city.
Me
And I
too.
took up closes, so it looked like it was like an aerial view of an actual city. A story that I found really interesting. Someone called Nange. She was an entertainer for the Japanese that won the war against them. For revenge, she was dancing with the leader, and then she jumped off the cliff. Then they fell and both died. We also made paper, Korean paper. What was it called? Hanji. Yeah, I loved making the paper. Although my hands got really sticky though. We made it with mulberry fibers, not fibers, and
Right here?
and hibiscus.
Right here?
Look, that's a sample of the paper. It's a little bit like toilet paper, but it's paper.
Who are they?
They're my grandpa's family or my grandma's family.
Grandpa's family.
Okay, it's my grandpa's family, and
Where were we? Where did you go?
oh, we were going to have dinner together.
Yeah, at this
Ah.
place that we go all the time called Italian.
Food.
Exactly how it sounds. Italian food and Asian food.
Hold it. Straight, right there. Hold it. Just hold it. Wait. I think we got it.
Skylar is 17. Austin is 14.
I think there were lots of expectations. I think we were really looking forward to having our kids immersed, so that they could spot some of the differences in their own life. My kids generally look more like me than Yoon. And so to be surrounded by Koreans and people who all look more similar to each other than they do to my kids, we thought might trigger some stuff for them. So I think we were definitely thinking about it and wondering how it would all turn out. The tour was wonderful,
Yeah.
and the guide's view of it was wonderful, but when your dad would start to talk about what he remembered and how it was for him, I thought that really made it very special.
할아버지 is very. You could tell that he really he knows this stuff. He's like, he has that look of, yeah, I know this. I did this. I remember doing this.
In real life.
Yes. And I mean, I don't know if he actually did or not. He probably did. But I do like how, hopefully he's enjoying himself. I think he is.
Yeah, and I think the other part of the whole trip was that it was important because it wasn't just about the cross-cultural stuff. It was a big family trip with the grandparents. And it was going to be one of those once-in-a-lifetime trips, and it was. And part of that was the cultural stuff, but part of it was family that they would meet that they wouldn't really have a context to otherwise. Part of it was showing where we started our life and our, half of their family came from, hoping that they make a connection with that part of it. I'm not sure how much of it that they made the connection with, but I'm guessing it'll kind of bubble up as years go on about, when we went to Korea, it was kind of like this. I'm glad that we had the opportunity and the means to show them that, and hopefully they'll remember it, if nothing else, and remember it fondly.
야는 첫째. 지금 대학교. 경로네.
아이고 반가워.
There was the occasional, I remember like this place that we went to, Italasian, which was an Italian Asian place that we went to like 3 times because our relatives just really liked the place. And I remember one of the waiters was like, wait, you're telling me this kid here wants 2 fried rices? But they were just so like surprised. They were just talking to our relatives like, is this person crazy? They're just gonna eat all of that? Are you serious? But that was the only major instance where I thought, I'm a white kid in a very predominantly Asian place. But other than that, everybody Korea to me just seemed so different compared to what I thought it would be. Really, all I had to go off of was some textbook images from like 300 BC. And that obviously is not the case. Although there are a lot of ancient Korean relics that still exist and are very, very nice to see. But it just, I just didn't exactly know what to expect. Basically, if Asians invaded New York City, that's how I feel like that Seoul was, because we did predominantly stay in Seoul.
With outskirts being more like Vermont area. Just not very...
But not a very urban place. Not a very urban place. Beautiful trip. Great people. It's amazing to meet our relatives.
I always say there's kind of 2 kinds of parents or immigrants. The kind that go back every year and bring their children, and maybe their children even sometimes summer in Korea, that sort of thing. Or the kind that just never really go back. And ironically, both our parents are the latter type. My parents, for sort of very obvious reasons, because my parents are both from North Korea. So they don't have a lot. My dad has no relatives in South Korea. He lost his entire family. So me having gone back to Korea on a very frequent basis, I certainly didn't feel a very strong connection to my motherland. It was important for me to, while my children were still my children and not having been married off, that I bring them there and, wanting them to experience what their mother country is like. And it's obviously it's so different than even when I went in the 90s. But yeah, I just wanted them to experience what that was like to be in a country where of all Koreans. It's such a cool experience. It's like the first time I went to Flushing when I grew up in Ohio, and I walked into Flushing. I was like, "Oh
what
my!
Is this place?
What like that I was part of the majority and not part of the minority. Like it was such a fascinating feeling. Sure, I was actually quite nervous whether or not, in particular, my son would feel like awkward and I hate it here and doesn't really like Korean food. And, there's so many things that I was so worried about that he would potentially rebel against and say, this is terrible. I want to go back home. My worries were, they didn't come to fruition. And Kevin was my son was much more
Willing and open.
And didn't whine. Yeah. Yeah, really just embraced it.
He just needed a hamburger every few days.
Embraced the time there and then my daughter, I thought she would be very much more open about it, but still I wasn't sure how she'd feel about, whether, because she's a little bit more, again, not your mainstream kind of girl, whether she would feel Korea is too conservative or something like that. She loved seeing such a range of Korean faces and people. She loved that. I think a lot of young Korean Americans here think of Korea as K-pop, K-drama type people. The plastic surgery faces and such, and seeing real Korean faces and such a range of them. I think it made her feel really good about herself and her, just her people, and that they're not just kind of this thing you see on television, but, it's a real society with such a range of people that I think it made her happy to see that.
이거 배터리였는 기가?
아니, 여기 이거 집어넣으면은 그 여기 버튼까지 커넥팅 하는 거야.
저 전화해서 절로 가는.
Oh my gosh. This was my first time on a different continent. First place where I'm there for a long period of time and I don't speak the language. It's in general a very big learning experience, I think. I think any big trip, it makes you think about a lot of things you never thought about before. Therefore, you're learning from that. You're learning from all of your experiences there. The entire trip was very nice. We got to see a lot of Korea. I didn't really know a lot about Korea's landscape, geography.
After they rebuilt the city, it's become really nice and modern, and there's a lot of cool stuff that they have there that they don't have in the United States. Yeah, the subway was really clean, and they had all these modern sliding glass doors everywhere, even in the subways and the underground, and there's a lot of cool underground systems and stuff. When I was just walking on the sidewalk, just with family, even just looking around, you would think you would feel more comfortable, but it's not uncomfortable, it's just unusual in my mind. As I would be walking, if I was walking in New York City, I would just see just a lot of different people, but here it's just Korean people, and I don't know. You would think it would be comforting, but it was just a little weird at first.
Being in Korea made me think for the first time as an American about my nationality. A lot of people ask, what's your nationality? Because people mix up nationality and ethnicity and race and all those things. But for the first time, because if you grow up in America, America is the center of the universe and there's nothing but America. So I had to think about my status as an American in Korea.
아미에 있었단 말이야. 있을 때 누구네 집에 엄마 그랜페어런트가 저거 양조장 했잖아.
어딨나?
내 엄마 얘기 안 했지.
봉화 주조 주식했어. 봉화.
봉화카는 이 마을 여기서 저거 막걸리 공장 했다고. 6.25 저 코리안와 비포 코리안와 했는데 엄마는 저거 맨날 보고 자랐어. 어디 뭐라고 썼는데? 봉화
리시트.
봉화 주식회사.
주조 주식.
주조 주식회사. Like this. Yeah.
한국은 내가 어릴 때 하고 너무 변해가지고 얼마나 변했다 하는 건 이야기할 수도 없고 제일 많이 변한 게 6.25 사업이 나고 그럴 땐 산에 나무가 하나도 없었어. 그런데 산에 나무가 굉장히 많고
산이고 들이고 다 나무가 많아. 전부 그지 만만치.
나무가 많고 하이웨이들이 많고
한강에 다리가 많고 한강에 다리가 32개라고 하니까.
그런데 손자들하고 같이 걷고 같이 움직이고 또 같이 음식을 먹고 하는 게 이 보통 힘든 거 아닌데 특별한 그 축복이라고 생각해. It's a special blessing for us. 우리 내가 같이 졸업하는 사람들도 이과대학 반은 거의 다 죽었는데 아직 살아있고 그러고 얘들하고 같이 움직일 수 있고 손자들이 손잡고 내가 어릴 때 있던 그 땅을 걸을 수 있다는 것은 특별히 감사한 것이고.
So, how do you feel about going to Korea?
I think going to Korea is going to be pretty exciting.
We've traveled a little as a family, but nothing like this. And the fact that the whole extended family is going to be there, and we sort of all get to share this experience, it's something I hope that we're all going to remember for a long, long time.